Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 20th episode of the SERPs of the Week podcast. I am Alex, your host today, and I have the pleasure of introducing our very special guest, Nick LeRoy. Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, many thanks. It's a pleasure for sure for having you here, and many thanks for joining us, right? And let me provide a quick introduction to Nick. Nick LeRoy is a freelance SEO consultant who specializes in SEO consulting, SEO audits, and SEO advising through his company, Nick LeRoy Consulting. Nick is the author of the SEO for Lunch newsletter and the owner of the boutique job board SEO Jobs. Well, I have to say that I've been following Nick on LinkedIn for quite some time, and I must say that he consistently shares excellent insights on the current state of the SEO markets and everything related to this topic. And most probably, I think I don't really remember any pod that haven't been really hasn't been really catching my attention. So thank you very much, Nick, for sharing, such great content. And Nick, it has been a pleasure following you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for following, and always appreciate your comments and amplifying the recommendations I'm able to give.
Yeah, perfect. So today we will be discussing the SEO job market and what will be in demand next year, 2024 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, I have the very first question. How did you come up with the idea of creating an SEO job board?
Yeah, so it's actually a really good story because I didn't come up with the idea. So I originally had a partner, Peter Askew. A lot of people might know him on Twitter. He's the onion guy. He literally partners with a farmer, grows onions and ships them around the world. And when he's not doing that, he's a huge domainer. He loves being able to understand what domains are available, but not only you just want to build any type of sites, like he wants to build ones where like you can kind of build a company attached to it. So he had the opportunity maybe 3 years ago where he had SEO jobs available and he purchased it. He had obviously.
Okay, so that was basically, it was on sale, right?
Yeah. So
what was? May I ask you what was before there? Before you kind of repurposed it, what was the original content there?
Right. So there's kind of an SEO job board, but it really was kind of haphazard. Like it was put together, but it wasn't actively marketed. I think it was somebody's kind of like side project, a little bit of a dream, but didn't put it. But long story short, Peter had reached out to me because I have the SEO for Lunch newsletter and said, "Hey, I'd love to advertise." And I did, like we agreed on it. And then he came back and he was like, I really like that you're active in the SEO space. You have a little bit of a name, would you be open to partnering? I was like, yeah, it's like a great opportunity. I think we all know that LinkedIn and Indeed and some of these other sites like really aren't doing a good job for our industry. So I jumped in. And then after a year of working together, Peter and I get along super well, but he had an opportunity to buy back another project that he had sold that he was more passionate about. So he came and said, "Are you open to buying me out?" And I said, "Heck yes." So that's the long story of like how it became. And then it just turned into kind of a labor of love. And the industry has been very, very supportive. I think it's an area that everybody wants to be better. And, selfishly, if I can make $1 or $2, that's amazing. But more importantly, if I can help people that are in between jobs or need to find a better position, like that's the real victory with this site.
Do you basically, it's just a job board, or it's also working like more like LinkedIn, that basically whenever you kind of put your profile and you suggest, right, relevant job opportunities to this profile, or it's more like, you can kind of go there and apply?
Yeah, right now I would say it's one of those things. The site's actually very simple in the aspect of the job is posted, and then there's multiple links just to go out to another job board where you can do, or sorry, not a job board, but a formal job posting.
Yeah, career most probably page or something like that belongs to a particular employer.
Exactly. But the benefit is, and I think the part that a lot of people like is we've all been on LinkedIn. You go to the jobs and you type in SEO manager, something along those.
Mm-hmm.
And the first job that comes up is always a it's like a developer role where there's a bullet
Mm-hmm.
that says, you know,
Mm-hmm.
SEO is a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll answer Hans' question real quick. So the business,
Yeah, I was about to ask you because
yes, absolutely. So his
that
question,
that 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 is, I think, also interesting to know.
yeah. So I think this it's very very important because I don't want to pretend that it's 100% selfless. But his question is, what is the business model and who pays? So the people who pay are the companies that want to list their job description. So there's no cost whatsoever to anybody who is looking for a job, and you
Okay,
would
but
want.
there is a cost to put your job on your board, right?
Correct. Yep. So, and that's what I was trying to kind of get at with the LinkedIn is LinkedIn, Indeed, some of the Zip recruiters, there again, I have sites that are much, much larger and they'll have more roles, but it's very hard to find a user experience that, it gives you that experience that you actually want, which are qualified SEO jobs,
Mm-hmm.
not any technical job where SEO is a bullet point. And job seekers, so Hans also had another question where he says, "In job seekers, can they post?" So right now, we do not have that option. But we do have a partnership with SEO for Hire for being
Mm-hmm.
able to help get support for if you're looking to be placed into a job. And then so there's an opportunity to fill out a form there and work with some really talented individuals that are looking to help place, SEOs with their dream job.
Yeah, okay, great. By the way, do you plan, or you maybe it's just kind of, you've already basically implemented this, right? So whenever you kind of, you want to be above all the job
Mhm.
opportunities, right? Like kind of, basically some special places, right? Whenever you want to kind of reserve it for your basically for your particular job description, right? For
Correct.
your job.
Yep. So that's the difference between some of our lower tier payments.
Okay.
So actually, the one thing that's really nice is that, and this goes back to what Peter and I kind of agreed on. For people that have used like LinkedIn or Indeed, they know that it costs hundreds or thousands of dollars to be
Yeah,
able
it's
to.
very expensive,
Yeah, it's very
obviously.
expensive. So we never wanted to try to, be that expensive. So we actually offer free listings as well. So we'll give any company who wants to post a job one free job listing every 6 months. So they could do two
Mm-hmm.
jobs per year for absolutely free. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a really small fee. If you want to just be listed without kind of any of the benefits, I think it's $59. But we have a platinum
Mm.
listing, which is $99. But as Alex, as you had just said, it allows you to be featured, which is at the very top of the page.
Yeah, so you will be kind of basically blocked there, right? So whenever
Exactly.
someone will be scrolling through pages, you will be there always at the top.
And that's exactly
Okay,
what it
so basically your own Google AdWords.
is. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
like
in
that's
some
that's
way.
exactly how it works. Yeah. Take a little bit of Google in the site
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for sharing this. And I just wanted to know, right? Since you kind of post a lot of jobs, right? And since you work with them, you see different right positions. Most probably you can answer these questions. What are the highest paying jobs, SEO jobs, right nowadays? I
Yeah,
mean, not talking about managerial positions, because obviously, right, whenever
right.
you're kind of stepping into a managerial job, right, you're managing something, you're a team lead, that is a completely different story. But whenever you just an SEO, right, you're hands on SEO, you do SEO, but there are obviously different verticals there, and that will be interesting to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the answer is a little bit hard to give clear cut because, as you know, especially like in the United States, the pay is quite a bit higher than, say, in the United Kingdom or even Australia. But I would say if I speak for the United States, where I'm a little bit more familiar with the data, an entry level can it probably expect pay starting in the 40,000 to 60,000 is fairly
Mm-hmm.
common. And then I know you said not necessarily as important, but as you become more of a team lead or even kind of go above SEO and are more of like a growth director, I've seen posted jobs that are north of $300,000.
Okay, but what kind of skills do you need to have in order to be, for instance, if you're still being, let's say, an SEO specialist, right?
Mhm.
Not a manager, not a team leader, not a growth marketing director, because all of those positions, they require managerial skills, right? You need to know how to manage people. And I think, like, based on my experience, it's quite challenging, being honest, right? So, even like being a good specialist sometimes is fairly enough if you have the right skill set, right? And what kind of skill set do you need to have in order to basically, let's imagine starting, if you want to, your annual plan, you're looking for something starting from 100,000 and goes over this.
Yeah, so let's break it up kind of like that entry level role and then, like you said, going above
Yeah.
it. But I think at the entry level, and Alex, I'm sure, with your team, you probably would agree with this, but I think finding people that are just excited and curious is actually like the best tactic. It's less about, do you use SEMrush?
I would a little bit argue.
Okay. Well, no. So let
No,
me.
no, no. But that is a good topic, really good
Yeah.
topic.
No, we should also
I
talk
would
about.
I mean, like, I would a bit argue. I would add, because context is extremely important here. So I would start from some basic things, because for sure it depends, right? Whether you are hiring as a remote company or you're hiring people in your office, because those two things, they are a bit different, and I'll explain from my perspective, right? Because for us, what we found out as a remote company, for us, it's extremely important to have people that used to work in really good corporate kind of, in companies that used to have good corporate culture that actually taught them some basics.
Sure.
So that is the first thing. And for sure, not necessarily you kind of, depends on the position and skills you're looking for and the salary, but some basic, right? Setting up some foundation is extremely important, right? So that should be a person that used to work in a good company, right? And not necessarily holding the right position there, right? The one that you're looking for, but this person gained a solid understanding of how to work with people, of how to communicate with people, because it's extremely important. Because what we found, right, after kind of working with very different profiles, that the communicational skills are the hardest ones to tackle, in fact. And if you never had any experience with how to communicate with other people, how to express your feedback, how to tell that you have questions, you will be surprised. People, we've been facing a lot of situations when we were kind of guiding, and we have a very good onboarding procedure, right? We were guiding people through our onboarding, asking them, do you have any questions? No questions. And then it was like, after some time, we were finding out that the person had literally zero understanding of the process, right?
Right.
So,
well, I think that is critical. And what's interesting is, you were kind of calling out, communication, and I'm a huge advocate. I absolutely love, and I think one of the biggest opportunities for our industry as a whole is for everybody to work on their communication. But what's interesting is
that is a soft skill, right? It's not really the hard skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can teach you about canonical tags. You can teach you about link building. But if you're unable to communicate to a leader, it doesn't really matter how good you are in executing. It's like you got to have both of those roles. And the reason that I didn't put communication for a more junior role was because I do genuinely believe that communication is what's required to be able to elevate. I think sometimes junior individuals, like you had said, you have to be able to communicate in a way that like ask questions and you feel safe to learn, and make mistakes, but you have to learn from all that. I think the next level of after you've learned, we'll call it like your SEO basics, then you have to kind of humanize the language. When you're talking to leaders or people that are looking to, purchase your services, you can't be using the terminology domain authority or domain rank or canonicals. Like you're going way too into the weeds. You need to be able to just talk
Yeah.
about conceptually, this is how Google is ranking your content, and this concept of
Mm-hmm.
authority is important, and what we do is help elevate your authority so that you become more relevant to the search engines. And somebody who is able to communicate that, in my opinion, is kind of like in the second tier of their career, whereas maybe in the very beginning, and that's why you're not paid as much, you truly are in
Mm-hmm.
the background doing your redirect mapping or maybe cold outreach or, on-page optimization.
Yeah, that is very true. But if we kind of step a little bit back and circle back to the question of SEO skills, right? What will be the basic SEO skills and what will be more advanced SEO skills, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's tackle that. So I think the basic is, I mean, starting from the very beginning of, are you familiar with your on-page skills? Looking at your title tags, your meta descriptions, canonical tags, things that are a little bit more on the technical side. But then
Mm-hmm.
also on the other end, do you understand how to reverse engineer some of your competitors in these tools, that we have access to? As
Mm-hmm.
well as we all know the benefits of content. I think those are the basics that you don't necessarily have to be amazing at them yet, but you should be familiar with them. To kind of your point is, how do you know enough to be able to ask questions or create tests so that you can learn from it? And I think then at that point, it's just being able to kind of get, what I kind of joke and say they're at bats. It's like, how many times do you get opportunities just to try over and over and over?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we all succeed and grow, is just by, getting more opportunities to try.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, by the way, whether kind of, because for sure in SEO, it's quite sometimes it's very challenging to show results, especially it all comes down to how successful the particular project was, right? Where you were involved, right? It's not necessarily your fault that the website by some reason got let's say along the penalty just a significant decrease in organic traffic, right? And so on, right? And how important is that factor that you can present, right, some successful projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're kind of applying for a job, and how important is that factor for employees, right, that are looking for people. So whether it's a huge factor, right,
Mm-hmm.
whenever they make their final decision, or it's not as big as we might think.
I think again, it kind of depends where the role is. I believe if it's more entry level, and again, I can speak a little bit more for how hiring is done in the United States. I think it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
about finding people that just have had some of the experience, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to train somebody that hasn't done it at all. They want somebody who's
Mm-hmm.
familiar with the tools and have done it. I think if you can prove success, that is important as well. But I think for a junior
Mm-hmm.
role, it's less important. I think as
Mm-hmm.
you get more into your senior, specialists or a manager,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a lot more important to be able to show tangible results. And I think it kind of goes back into that conversation we had of, you've got to be able to communicate and show the value that you've done and tie it to the work that you've actually done. Whereas with junior
Yeah, for
roles, I
sure.
think it's a lot more of just demonstrating that you have foundational knowledge and that you'd be a good culture fit, even in a remote
Yeah.
role.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, when it comes to all the jobs that you have, what is the percentage of remote-based roles and the one that hybrid and so on, right?
Mhm.
What is the current share of remote-based and the rest of others?
So we have to remember that all the jobs on the site, it's kind of populated two different ways. We have the ones that people
Hmm.
are submitting themselves, and then there's ones that I'm taking and kind of populating to make sure that we just have the best available. But to answer your question directly, I would say 90 to 95% are remote based, and then
That is nice.
small percent. And the reason is it's a little bit more strategic because SEO jobs is still fairly new. It's on its like second year, and we get
Mm-hmm.
10,000 visitors a month, which is not big, not small, but it's really, really hard for me to be able to highlight or take on a job that says this needs to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when of
Mm-hmm.
those 10,000 visitors, maybe 100 of them come from the state of Minnesota. So I do
Yeah, for
give
sure.
people, kind of the heads up of like your best success is going to be if you're open to remote workers.
Yeah, for sure. It's extremely important to just kind of to allow people, right, to work remotely, right, if they want to, so right. Just
Well,
because I know a lot of companies
too.
post-COVID, right, they kind of started to force their employees to come back.
Yes, they are. And what's interesting is when people reach out to me and say, "Hey, can you potentially help me find a job?" That is one of the main reasons. They're like, my company either had to let me go because they're having some financial issues, or
Yeah,
they want me to come back into the office and I want to maintain a remote role. And so there's
yeah,
a big benefit to people that are willing to embrace, remote working.
yeah, I can understand, I can relate, even though I think I think on a general note, I love working from the office, right? I don't mind, right, going to an office. The freedom and and making your decision maker whether you want to go or you don't want to go, right? It's just kind of it's really important here, I think, and we shouldn't actually degrade the importance of having this freedom, right, of
Right.
making decision what you want to do, right?
I think
So
it's
yeah, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think you would agree, as a founder, getting the work done and doing good work should always be like priority number one. If you can do
For
it at
sure,
home
right?
or the office, is another conversation. And again, it'd be interesting because we both have different perspectives. I myself am actually a freelance SEO, so it's like part of the reason I made that decision is because I want that ultimate flexibility in my schedule. I never
Mm.
wanted to have to go into offices or sit in client meetings all day long. But as someone who is a founder has multiple people working for them, you have to kind of juggle, are you doing your work? Are you doing good work? And you don't necessarily need to see people in chairs, but it's something for you to have to consider when you're making offers. And the talent pool is smaller in person than it is around the world. So there's a lot of give and take.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of whenever you try to find people that are based right in your location, let's say, right in your area, it really limits the opportunities, right?
Hmm.
So you can't really hire talents from other countries, right? And so on. So I think I mean, like, it comes with certain pros and cons, just because managing a remote based company also requires some certain procedures and so on, right? Which I've never been thinking of, being honest, before I started doing a fully remote company, because I started actually, we were sitting in an office, right? So I started it just kind of face to face, but due to the overall trends, I felt that we need to kind of give it a try, and at some point we ended up being a fully remote company, right? And I don't really regret this. I think it really kind of, everything complements us, right, in different ways. And I think we know how to manage those people and we know how to work with them. But if you kind of tomorrow you want to rise, I want to be a fully remote company, right? It's not as easy as it might sound,
Right.
right? So you can't really kind of turn into a fully remote company just because you have this idea, right? You have to remember this.
Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. Like you said, it's not, I mean, I think as SEOs, we tend to all lean towards remote is perfect, but we know that there are issues. There's bad eggs in every industry. There's going to be people that take advantage of, not working. And, on the other end, there's a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this too, is, when you are home working by yourself, you just kind of get stuck working. Like you don't have
Yeah, that is another problem. And I kind of couldn't agree more with you, right? It's so easy to kind of, stuck in your working process and not really making the right, making the switch, right? So you're just kind of here working, and that is very much it. And that is, I think, keeping a work-life balance, that is a very hot topic, right? So how you can organize things, just because I basically have a separate room, right? This is just the room where I work.
Right, me too.
And I just go there when I kind of, right? I know that is, my working day start there, and I don't really kind of, if I don't really need to work, I don't go there, right? So it's extremely important to set up some certain rules, right? To avoid being dragged into this never-ending drum of walking.
Right.
Just because you kind of you need to clean your brain, and you need to have really a transition from this to that, and this transition should be well delivered, right?
Agreed.
Otherwise, what I tell my colleagues, that you become absolutely useless at work. Just because your productivity goes very low, and you are no longer efficient, right? And you can't really work effectively, efficiently, and so on. So basically, it's extreme. Whenever you don't really want to work, it's better not to work.
Right. Well, and I think that just kind of plays a big role into when you're looking for your career, what kind of jobs do benefit you. Whether it is a hybrid model. I know quite a few people that say, I got kids at home, or I got babies, or my wife or my husband, my partner is at home. I need to be able to get away so that I can do good work at work, and I can be, a good, partner when I get home, or a good parent, So it's not a one is right or wrong, but I think that's one of the benefits of, the SEO career path right now, is that there's just a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I just wanted to ask you, right, my last question. What will be the best way, right, to differentiate yourself from other SEO professionals? Just by looking at, since you have so many data that goes through you, right? So you see, right, different candidates, most probably they approach you, see different job offers, right? What will really make a huge difference, right? So you can really be in demand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about this a little bit, and I feel very, very strongly about this. I believe the difference between 95% of SEOs and the remaining 5% is your ability to communicate. A lot of us, most of us, can optimize any website. Some can do a little bit bigger websites, some can do smaller. Some of us can build 20 links in a month, some of us can build 2. But what is really interesting is when we talk about communicating, whether it's to your colleagues, to your boss, to your clients, or even the owner of the company, very few people can actually do that in a way that is effective. So that's why I say effective communication. And that's why when I had to make hires, when I was on the agency side, I looked for people that were passionate and could communicate well, especially junior, because I felt very confident that I can teach you what canonical tag is. I can't teach you how to make eye contact with somebody, or to be able to use, regular, communication styles and not go super deep and talk about log file analysis. So I think that truly is the separator between somebody who is just a good SEO versus somebody who is an excellent SEO.
But what about seeing a bigger picture, seeing things beyond SEO? Just because at the end of the day, it's not about SEO, right? It's just about making the particular business profitable through this channel, right?
Yep.
Rather than generating traffic for the sake of generating traffic, right?
Yeah, and you absolutely have to have that business acumen, especially when you get into more senior roles. It's not being able to do kind of what you're already doing. It's making sure that you're staying on top of the trends, SGE, AI, and really trying to understand which ones are worth going deeper in and which ones are not worth it. We talk about shiny object syndrome. And I work a lot with enterprise level clients, and they'll bring up
Mm-hmm.
like SGE or AI. And I'm like, your homepage still says homepage in the title tag. Like, we're not there yet. Like, we're literally going to make sure that we do the basics exceptionally well, because on a scale of 0 to 100, you're at 10 and you're trying to play at 100. It's like, let's make sure we get up to 90 and do it exceptionally well versus trying to skip corners. So I think if people have that mindset, that will absolutely make them stand out as well.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with you, Nick. So it's just combination of communicational skills and being, well, most probably having either the right perspective, right, the business perspective, or being empathetical enough in order to understand what either your manager or your, if you work directly with a business owner is looking for out of, out of SEO, right, as a channel. So you can actually deliver, right, exactly what they are looking for, rather than just ticking the boxes, right?
Correct. Yep. And I think that's, if we kind of put career paths, on a linear scale, I think at the very beginning, it's a lot more of, Nick gave me a list of 10 things to do. And then at the end, you're creating the list for somebody else to do it. And, you're just trying to make that progress. And then you're rewarded with more flexibility, more responsibility, more pay.
Yeah. This all sounds great, Nick. Thank you very much for the great conversation. Thank you very much for giving such a deep dive into the current SEO trends, right? What kind of skills are the most important ones? And it's just kind of at the end of the day, right? It all comes down to very basic, right, skills that actually we utilize on a daily basis, right? If you can communicate well with your neighbors, right, that will be, you will have a lovely neighborhood, right? So the same goes to your colleague, the same goes to your managers, and so, if you work with clients, the same goes to your clients, right?
Correct.
So, everything basically not really starts with SEO, right, at the end of the day, but with what you as a human can deliver, right? And whether you're working on this, because it requires certain hours of work, obviously, right?
Without a doubt.
Reconsidering what you tell others and think, how you can better say the same, but in a different way, so people can understand you better.
100% agree.
Thank you very much, Nick, for joining us today. It was a pleasure having a conversation with you today. And I hope to see you among our guests next year. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again for having me. Appreciate you.